Hi guys, I'm Danielle.
And I'm Dr. Rachel.
I am a front desk CA.
And I'm a chiropractor with training in perinatal and pediatric care.
And I had a baby 4 months ago.
Yep. So that's why we're here. We are going to talk about not just pregnancy and birth, but empowered pregnancy and birth. My biggest goal for this webinar is to help you feel supported in the decisions that you make, no matter what you choose for your pregnancy care and birth.
Yeah, it's all about informed consent and knowing that you have so many options and you are the gatekeeper to your birth.
So that's the main message. You are the director of your experience. The way that Danielle said it to me is you are in charge of the room.
Yep, you are in charge of who gets to be there. You're in charge of who you send out of the room if something happens. You are in charge of how your baby is delivered, and always remembering that you deliver your baby. Somebody else does not.
Yeah, in empowered birthing, the birthing person gets to feel in control, gets to be respected and supported throughout the entire process. This approach creates a sense of strength and confidence and emotional well-being that you deserve in that experience. And regardless of the specific details or outcomes of the birth itself, I want you to feel confident entering into your birth experience without fear. I want you to have an in-depth knowledge about really what is the marathon that you're about to run. Know how to be in control throughout the process, make informed birth choices along the way. Like Danielle said, learn how to control your environment, involve your partner in that advocacy, and be conscious in practicing the skills that will allow you or your birthing couple to be the directors of that experience. So we're going to go through 5 decisions that are important to make in advance for yourself or with your partner, and also what we call non-negotiables. Everything technically is negotiable, right? But 3 things that we strongly recommend as part of your experience. And yes, everything is a choice. If you've been mostly in the medical model, and that's the system that you're familiar with, you might not realize that you have as many options as you do. The white coat will make you think that all of their recommendations are mandatory, right? Which is pretty far from the truth. You do have choices, you do have options, you have the right to decline any and all interventions or recommendations. Because again, you are in charge of your experience. And with that, you'll want to know what you're walking into, so to speak. So be prepared with some of those key decisions in advance.
So let's talk about your care and your team of providers. You have endless options. To name a few, you can get an OB. You can use a midwife in and outside of a hospital. You could have a doula. You could go completely unassisted, which so many women do. And you could also have a chiropractor.
So let's go through these a little bit. So if you are choosing an OB or an obstetrician, something to keep in mind is that they work as a team, right? So if your OB is going to be out of town or unavailable or on vacation when you go into birth, what does that mean to you and to your mindset? Is that going to inspire fear or panic? And how can you mitigate some of that fear in advance? Maybe by meeting their team member or their partner obstetrician, knowing who might be in the room if they are not available. Or could you mitigate that by having your own midwife, either a hospital midwife or one that you hire from outside the hospital system? There is a big difference between a midwife and a doula. So, a midwife is trained in medical care, and that is for before, during, and after pregnancy. A midwife could help you with a home birth or in a birth center or in a hospital. Some hospitals even have groups of midwives that they work with, and they can support the whole process. So, things like fetal heart monitoring, positioning appointments. Some midwives will even let you have a baby breech. You can birth breech or after 42 weeks, which most obstetricians will not allow. And you can also get postpartum care from your midwife if you need stitches or other type of medical care. A midwife has between 600 and 1,000 hours of training, so big certification to be a midwife. Whereas a doula is more of a coach. This is your trusted birth support. A lot of doulas have had children themselves, are passionate about attending births, and can help you through the mindset, the laboring process, helping to keep you comfortable, but it's non-medical support. So they're primarily there to help keep you calm and comfortable and to serve as an additional advocate if you're, especially if you're in a hospital setting. But there's less training involved. So we're talking like 30 hours of training to be a doula compared to hundreds or 1,000 hours of training for a midwife. And many will have both. Many women will choose to have both with them. Going unassisted requires a big amount of faith, right? You are fully surrendering to the process, trusting that your body can do this and is built to do this, and that you don't need anybody but yourself or your partner there to help you through that process. I don't know many first-time moms that go unassisted right off the bat, but man, if you do, I will applaud you and support you all the way. And as a chiropractor with perinatal training, I do just want to point out that we're going to talk more about chiropractic a little later on, but there's a big difference between a Webster's certified chiropractor or a chiropractor who's passionate and well-trained in perinatal care to just your average pain-based chiropractor down the block. And so if you are seeking out chiropractic care during pregnancy, I would recommend finding somebody who's Webster's certified. And even more so than that, you can probably peruse their website and find out how passionate they are about pregnancy and pediatric care.
So let's talk about your birth plan. It is important, no matter where you are choosing to deliver your baby, that you have a plan. You and your partner have sat down, you've talked about your non-negotiables, and it sets the whole scene. It's very detail oriented, and there's alternatives. And it's all about what you like in a hospital setting. So not many know, but we tried outside of the hospital. We were at the birth center or the birth house with Sarah Badger and Simply Born. And after a number of hours, we opted to transfer to the hospital. When you walk in the door, they are going to ask you a list of questions, and you need to know the answers to those. For us, our non-negotiables were I did not want too many people in the room. If there were people in the room, they were who I picked. I actually kicked the anesthesiologist out because he was being a little bit crass to me. And it's important to know that every additional person that you have in your room could have the potential to add an hour to your labor and delivery. So being prepared, making sure that your partner or your doula is prepared with your birth plan and the things that you do and do not want. And you have options. You can decline things now and opt for them later. You are totally in charge.
And your birth plan, you kind of want to make it detailed as possible in advance, because if you can envision these things in advance and envision your experience, it leaves more room for change as you go. And so, and also when maybe you can speak to this. When you're laboring and you're in pain, you're not thinking about the playlist that you want, right? You just want it to be on. You want it to be ready. And so, what type of affection do you like? Are you into physical touch or not? If so, do you want massage? Do you want your hand held? Do you want to be compressed with body pressure? You want to be left alone. Think about those types of things in advance. How does your person respond under stress? And what are you going to need from your partner or coach in that moment? Things like cold compresses. Do you want a birth pool? Do you want to be able to take a shower or a bath? Do you want essential oils, either in a diffuser or applied to your body? Are there specific essential oils that you respond really well to that you want to make a little list for your partner or have prepared? Music, this is big. I don't know about you, but my music taste could change from moment to moment. And so have a variety of things prepared. It doesn't have to be soundscapes if you're not into soundscapes. If you want to listen to heavy metal while you give birth, like do it. It's your room. You get to listen to or play whatever you want, and that can change in the moment. So have some options ready for yourself. How do you want to move? Do you have a birthing ball that you want to bring with you? A chair, the pool? Do you want to walk or use the birthing bar in the hospital?
And with movement being said, if you choose a hospital setting and you choose an epidural like I did, you, at least at Corewell, you have to keep your feet on the bed. But that doesn't mean that you have to birth on your back. We used the birthing bar. I did a mile circuit. So I was on my side, on my back, on my tummy, on my side. I was in a squatted position. I used the birth bar. You have so many options, and all you have to do is ask.
Do you want to tell them about those 3 questions that they asked you when you walked in?
Oh, yes. The moment I walked in the door, the sweet nurse had said, "Hey, I need to know the 3 things you want for your baby. Do you want the eye cream? Do you want the Hep B vaccine? And do you want the vitamin K shot?" You have options for those. Please do your research when it comes to vaccines. I want you to be well informed of what's happening. Whether you choose to vaccinate or not, I want you to know that you're making the decision that's best for you and your family. When it comes to vitamin D, you can do the injection, or there's drops, or you can say no altogether. That being said, if you choose no for the vitamin K, it means that you will not be allowed to circumcise in the hospital. Again, another question, if you have a boy, that you'll need to do your research on. And then the eye cream, I just opted out of it because it didn't make sense to me. Again, do your research on that one.
And write everything down.
Mm-hmm.
There's a ton of templates online. We stole this one off of Etsy, but there's tons of options that either lean toward natural options or otherwise. There's visual things because you are not going to be thinking clearly, right? So you want these written down. You want your partner to have possession of your birth plan so that you can refer to it in the moment and so that it can change in the moment.
And speaking of partners, there's a lot of really great resources out there for you and your partner to invest in. You could do birth classes together. The Bradley method is a great option. My husband and I read Husband Coach Childbirth, and he said it was just a world of difference on knowing and understanding what I would be going through and the decisions that he would need to make. I did not read Orgasmic Birth, but you did, and you said it was really great.
I really liked Orgasmic Birth because it was the first message early on when I was in chiropractic school that birth doesn't have to be this horrendous, painful experience. I feel like that's a lot of what media shows us is just suffering. And Orgasmic Birth alludes to the idea that your body is doing the right thing. And although it's intense, it doesn't have to be painful or excruciating. Another good resource is a video. It's called The Business of Being Born.
Yeah.
And it is polarizing. It is controversial, but it gives a window into how hospitals monetize and profit from certain birth interventions, if that's your jam.
So let's talk about your birth team. You are the most important person in that room, and the second most important person is your partner. When we transferred, I opted to not have a doula because I trusted that my husband was going to be there to help me make those decisions, because we talked through it all. We spent 9 months deciding what we would and would not do. And so you get to decide who's in that room, what doctors are there, what doulas are there, what nurses get to be there. I invited a nurse tech into my room because she was just my vibe. I mean, she walked in and she did hip squeezes, and she was exactly who I needed in that moment.
The cool thing about building your birth team, or one of the cool things, is that you have all of these different people and professionals who love you with their unique skills, talents, and expertise coming together to serve the family. And it can look very different depending on the person. So here we have a photo of an example of a birth team. You've got the doula, the midwife, looks like husband or partner also there. But we wanted to share, so there is this website, let's add it, here we go, this is a birth photographer, that this is coming from her page, and there's so many different setups or teams that are depicted here. So if I scroll, can we see that? Yes. So this first one up here, this is a home birth. You can see that there's family and friends in the room. Another home birth in the pool. When we go a little further, this is in a hospital. This one was really cool to us because even though she's in the hospital, she's in a position that is comfortable to her. She is birthing or holding her own baby as he exits the birth canal. She's not hooked up to any interventions, right? She has freedom in this hospital setting, even with the nurses and the doctors there. Another home birth, a C-section with a clear drape, and look at the beautiful vernix that is on that baby, even with C-section delivery. And mom can be present. She can see, she's not hidden from the process, which is really beautiful. Another birth pool delivery at home, another home laboring situation, another hospital birth. And this is probably more what we see in media, the on the back delivery. She's hooked up to a continuous heart monitor.
But I do want to acknowledge, look at how supportive her team is. The lights are low. I'm sure she's got like music going. This is what my experience looked like. And when I tell you, you are in charge when you walk in that room, I set the bar high. I had all the lights off. I said that there was a maximum of 4 people that were allowed in my room at a time, and I needed to know who they were. And I had the air conditioning like way up. I was sweating. The nurses were like, "It's really cold in here." I was like, "Okay, I don't really care about your comfort." But I love how supportive that her team is in this.
Another hospital birth, and see, she's birthing in whatever position feels right to her. She's got her team and partner right there stroking her back. Got a home water birth. There's the one that we just looked at earlier. Another hospital team setting. The list goes on. Got home birth, another hospital birth. Notice how many different positions all of these women are in. You get to birth in whatever position you want. There's even a birthing ball here. She's set up standing. So we thought that that was really a beautiful depiction of how different your team or your room can look depending on your preferences.
And that being said, I will share with you guys, there was like we were right in the heat of pushing, and I don't know who it was, but a tech walked in, and in the hospital setting, we were doing hold for tens. So we do 3 counts of 10 as we pushed, and I was halfway through my second push, and somebody just walked in the door, and labor stopped. Like I couldn't push anymore. I was distracted. So that's why it's so important to have those things written down, so that way the entire nursing team knows what's happening.
You want to tell us some of the things you prepared for natural pain relief?
Yes. So, mindset was a really big thing that I did not prepare well enough for. I will admit it. I was like, nope, I'm just going to go in and you just kind of like cough and the baby falls out, right? That is not the case. I had a wonderful team while we were at the birth house. I had 2 different assistants that were guiding me. Um, Mindset is really big. So listening to podcasts, Out of the Box is a really great podcast. They're great friends of ours at Max Living. Um, the comb, like there's like a comb, you like hold on to it, and it's all about counter pressure. Um, you had talked about like counter pressure and your partner doing hip squeezes. Do you want to be touched? Do you not? I found that a squatted position was very comfortable. Laboring on the toilet was very comfortable. It just helped really get you past those things. And I remember Janelle telling me, you can do anything for 60 seconds. And she was right. I can do anything for 60 seconds. And the harder it got, the longer the 60 seconds felt. But as I was telling my body, I have everything I need to be successful. God designed my body to birth this baby. I have everything I need to push. Was just a huge mindset.
Mm-hmm. There's also techniques like hypnobirthing. There are lots of breathwork resources. I've never had a baby, but I personally believe that if you breathe, you can get through anything. If you focus on your breath, then the pain, it's there, but you're getting through it with your breath by focusing.
Yeah.
Affirmations and prayer can be a big one. Working on mindset, which we're going to talk about again a little bit later.
Yeah. Let's touch on the cascade of interventions. So it's like a big, scary word, but it's not. I want to bring you back down and remind you that you're in charge, and the cascade of interventions does not have to happen. To share a little bit more of my story, I did opt for an epidural. I drew a very hard line that I said I did not want any IV medication. So the only thing in my epidural was lidocaine and epinephrine. There was no fentanyl, there was no morphine, and those are things that they do put in there if you do not say no. And that is typically the start of the cascade of interventions. Once you get an epidural, your labor will stall. That's normal. It's your body's response to not feeling the need to push. And so after that is likely the start of Pitocin. And you are in charge of Pitocin. The nurse told me that hospital policy was that they have to start it at a certain amount, and that they have to start at a certain amount, and they have to up it every 30 minutes. And I drew a very hard line and told them no. I said, you will start it at 1 and you will give me an hour. And I had an hour between every increase, and we only ended up increasing to 4, which our midwife after the fact said, normally we have to get people up to 12 or 16 before the baby comes. So I was really proud of that.
And obviously, Danielle is super knowledgeable and was very prepared going into this experience. I would like to touch on how I've heard from other women when they're not so prepared, how quickly things can get carried away. Or I've had a woman tell me she felt like the rug was pulled out from under her because she didn't have the knowledge to say, I actually am only going to start at 1 and increase every hour, right? She didn't realize that she had those options. So a lot of times what you hear is, oh, I didn't want the epidural, but I was so exhausted and they kept offering it and they kept telling me that I should do it. And so I took their advice, right? I did the epidural. And then I couldn't feel anything from the waist down. So then I'm on my back.
Yep.
And labor stalls because gravity, right? And so next thing you know, I needed Pitocin. And Pitocin, if you don't know, is a synthetic form of oxytocin.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your body naturally produces oxytocin to increase the downward wave for labor contractions. But Pitocin, because it's so strong, will often be out of sync with your body's natural oxytocin. So then you have these big contractions that are not in sync with each other. So you're in more pain, you're having bigger contractions, but baby's still not coming. So then they're increasing the Pitocin to try to get baby to come, and things get stalled or things get quote unquote stuck. And before you know it, you have a C-section, or they had to pull out the forceps, or doctor is pulling on baby, depending on how much you're dilated, right? But more often than not, that epidural Pitocin cesarean happens very quickly. And in a hospital, it's not that they don't care, but it's that they can do a C-section, right? Mm-hmm. So they don't necessarily even think to slow the process or to give you your options, because they'll just do a C-section. It's no big deal to them to just do a cesarean. And that is an intense experience at best and a traumatic one at worst if you are not prepared for how that sequence of events can happen.
Mm-hmm. Oh, my favorite season. Here we are in the 4th trimester. It was really important to me to remind myself that I need to rest, I need to feel, I need to fuel, and I need to hold. So rest was so important. I spent 6 weeks at home. I did not do like the 5-5-5 rule. I just paid attention to what my body was telling me. Was I ready to go out? Was I not? And then holding space for the feelings. Postpartum hormones are wild. I mean, no one can prepare you for that. You are having hormones for 2 people, and then all of a sudden you don't. And so reminding yourself that you have a team around you, that if anything is happening that you don't feel like yourself, you need to reach out and talk to somebody about those feelings, feel those feelings. Reminding yourself to feel your body. Even now in my nursing, my breastfeeding journey, I probably drink 32 ounces in the middle of the night when I'm nursing. It's incredible. And then getting enough protein, just making sure you're feeling yourself so that way you can feel your baby. And then holding space for your postpartum season. I rushed through mine a little bit. I was so excited to get back to work and see everybody and be with my friends and my family. But holding space and honoring your postpartum season is great, and you need to do that.
Can you tell us what the 5-5-5 rule is?
Yeah, so the 5-5-5 rule is 5 days in the bed with your baby, 5 days on the bed with your baby, and 5 days around the bed with your baby. So pretty self-explanatory. On the bed with your baby means you're getting up. You maybe are getting up to get snacks or getting up to prepare a meal, but not being super active. And then around the bed is like light housework.
Cool. I kind of want to call out the elephant here in media. This idea that women are supposed to get their bodies back, mm-hmm. right? Months after having a baby is, right?
No.
Horrible. That's not, first of all, your body didn't go anywhere, right? Your body just created life and delivered it onto this planet. Mm-hmm. And it's forever changed. You are forever postpartum. Postpartum isn't the 3 months after birth or the 1 year after birth. Your body is forever postpartum. And so if you're like a fitness head and you really love vigorous exercise and you did that all through pregnancy, then sure, give yourself a little downtime and you can get back to the exercise that you enjoy. But that would be resuming normal activities after a certain point in time. This is not the time to start a new rigorous exercise regimen. This is not the time to look at your body and shame yourself and feel like you need to get back to where you were before you had a baby. If you want some core stability or some pelvic floor therapy after that first month or so, I've got ideas for you. There are pelvic floor therapists that specialize in that type of care, but be really gentle with yourself in this phase. And check in, like Danielle said, feel your feelings. This isn't just postpartum. In general, what you're unwilling to feel, your body will force forward. So stuffing those feelings, stuffing that hormone change and all of those emotions that might feel haywire is not going to serve you or your baby in the long run. When it comes to fuel, she said this, but I just want to emphasize high protein and high quality fats are the most important thing, especially if you are breastfeeding. You might also want to focus on electrolytes. Easiest way to do that is salt water, high quality salt. Dr. Mark says as salty as the ocean. Personally, I just do like a teaspoon of salt in a big jar of water and that'll do the trick. There are also a few decent brands on the market like Element or Ultima or Relight that don't have a bunch of sugar and fillers in them if that's more your style. All right, my favorite. This is my number one non-negotiable. Chiropractic care during pregnancy. There is normal physiology, and that is absolutely crucial, not just in pregnancy, but I would argue it's the most important time in your life to get adjusted. We need our bodies working as well as possible to be as healthy as possible. If you don't remember what subluxation is and you're a patient of ours, please go back to last year. There was a Chiro Live that Dr. Eric and I did about subluxation, but that's what we're talking about here. If you are subluxated, then pregnancy and birth will not go as well or as naturally as it could. Earlier, also last year, Janelle and I did a webinar where we go into a lot of the details about pelvic alignment, the ligaments and the soft tissues that surround your uterus and how chiropractic can affect all of those. But ultimately, to keep it short here, chiropractic care in pregnancy is vital to normal physiological function, and pregnancy and birth is normal physiological function. So it reduces nervous system stress, it balances your pelvic bones, muscles, and ligaments, and it optimizes mom's pelvic function in pregnancy and birth. And again, the adjustment is specific to pregnancy. It's called Webster's is the gold standard technique for prenatal or perinatal adjustments. And I do recommend that you find a chiropractor that is skilled in that technique.
Oh, the beautiful Janelle. Movement is so important through your pregnancy. I was encouraged to do 100 squats a day, which is very easy through pregnancy if you just do it after you go pee. Like if you go to the bathroom and just do 10, because you're gonna hit 100 every time. You don't realize how much labor takes out of your body, and you need to be strong. Like Dr. Rachel had said earlier, you're preparing for a marathon, and that is exactly what's happening.
Sitting is the worst thing that you can do for your pelvis, especially during pregnancy. And it leads to non-optimal baby positioning, which also leads to then more pain during labor and birth. Again, more info on that in the other Chiro Live that Janelle and I did last year. But couch slouch i.e. sinking back into the couch like this, right? One of the worst things that you can do. So something like a birthing ball or a Swedish chair. If you imagine a flashlight coming out of your belly button, you want the flashlight to be aiming at the floor, so like toward the ground. Whereas if you slouch, that flashlight goes up to the sky, right? You're pointing at the wall or at the ceiling. In general, in your movements, you want the flashlight or the belly button down toward the earth. And so much of what we do is that couch slouch position, driving, desk work, chilling, cell phones, right? That allows baby to fall back against gravity, put pressure on the sacrum and the spine, and not be in the most optimal position for birth.
And I can speak to that because Jake was posterior, so he was sunny side up. And I spent a lot of time sitting on the couch the last couple of weeks. So yeah, it's so important. The Miles circuit, spinning baby, not sitting and slouching, which is important, not during pregnancy, but super important during pregnancy.
So we've got some ideas on there. BirthFit is also a great organization for pregnancy and postpartum. You can go work out either online or in some local groups as a pregnant person, and then you can take your little baby and go afterward. They have tons of modifications for pregnancy and postpartum. And if you want some simple movement recommendations for pregnancy, shoot me an email. I've got lots of ideas for you. All right, this is big. We've alluded to this, I think, throughout the whole webinar so far, but I'm a doctor of the nervous system. When your nervous system is under stress, you're in that sympathetic stress response, that's the fight flight. That fight flight response, that fear can slow or completely stop labor. Like Danielle said, if somebody comes in the room and you're not expecting it, cortisol spikes, your body's uncertain of its environment. Next thing you know, labor slows, labor stops. And it's a cycle. That fear increases cortisol, which increases tension, which increases pain, which makes for more fear and more cortisol. And it's a feed forward cycle if you don't know how to cut it off and interrupt that fight flight response. The alternative to that is oxytocin. Like we said earlier, oxytocin is your birthing hormone. That's your love hormone. That's going to increase the downward contractile wave to promote labor. That requires your body to be in that relaxed, healing, rest and digest state.
And as a reminder, your body knows what to do. Just like plants move towards the sun, you turn the pots around, what happens? They move
the other way, back toward the sun.
Yeah, and your body is just like that. Your body craves love. It craves rest. It craves oxytocin. I remember being at the birth house and Nick just holding me. And I remember sobbing. I was so tired. And I was like, I just want to sleep. And the minute he wrapped his arms around me, I was finally able to just, and I just rested. And that was probably like the best 5 minutes of sleep I had in all 24 hours. But your body craves it. And your body knows what to do.
So that's our last non-negotiable, is have some tools prepared for your mindset to get your body into that rest, relax, accept, oxytocin type state. And whatever you choose, we're here to support you. Our biggest concern is that you have informed consent and you're empowered to make all of these decisions, and we're on your team if you need us.